and also so excited to be here because that's one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do as a career coach is to connect with people who I see myself in and who see themselves in me. And so we can just, really connect on that level. And anybody who has found a community of neurodivergent folks and instantly connected to them knows that feeling and knows how valuable it is to have that kind of support in their life. So, Sherry, you're doing an amazing thing as well. And, I'm so excited to be working alongside you here. And I'm excited to share my presentation today. So, a little bit about me, just to introduce myself. As you know, my name is Veronica Yao. I am the career coach behind Atypical Careers. And Atypical Careers was created to support neurodivergent professionals as they navigate their lives in their work lives, which is such a huge part of our lives and ends up impacting almost every aspect of our existence, because we spend so much time there. And so it's so important for us to be able to build a life that is sustainable, especially for neurodivergent folks who, we have our own sets of barriers, our own sets of challenges. I'll tell you a little bit about my history. So, way back when I was a marketing manager. I did that for almost 10 years. I worked a lot in startups. It was really high, fast paced and everything like that. And, I myself, my personal blend of neurodivergent is ADHD. And I was undiagnosed until I was 30. So I really didn't understand why, despite my best efforts, I was burning out over and over and over again. And it was just so frustrating. All the self care and all the career tips out there didn't seem to be working for me. And so when I finally got my diagnosis, I'm sure a lot of people here who have been late diagnosed will share this experience with me, is that, everything just clicked. It made sense. All of a sudden, I was seeing things through a neurodivergent lens, and it helped me solve so many mysteries in my life. And that's what I really want to do is help other people overcome that and, build stronger relationships with their work life so that they can get more out of life in general, so that you can have more time and more energy to do the things that you love to do. So today I'm so excited to be sharing this free training with you. It's called Build a Sustainable Work Life and Break the Neurodivergent Burnout Cycle. And, if you're here today, you probably saw the promotion that Sherry put out. And I'm assuming you're here today because you are A, neurodivergent, or you are supporting someone who is neurodivergent. And B, you or that person is unhappy with their work life in some way or another. So, with that, I want to propose a statement here. And we'll see, and we'll see. Like, type in the comments what you think. But this is my statement here. You think that escaping your job is the solution, but what you actually need is a neurodivergent friendly career strategy. Now, you're probably wondering, Veronica, what even is that? Is it too good to be true? And I can understand some skepticism at this. Being neurodivergent, we're being told over and over and over again, what to do, and things, often fall short. Often things don't work for us. So skepticism, totally understand. But that being said, sustainable work lives don't just happen, especially for people like us. We need to make choices with intention in order to achieve this goal, especially because we're working in a society and in a work environment, likely, that was not designed with the way that our brains work. It's not designed to work with the flow of how a neurodivergent person works. And that being said, neurodivergent, big umbrella. It doesn't mean that what works for one neurodivergent person will work for another person. So it's so important for us to really understand what we need and come up with a strategy that works with our brains and not against it, so that we can actually achieve this goal of a sustainable work life. Now, before we address more about what is actually a neurodivergent friendly career strategy, I do want to highlight a couple of experiences that may resonate with you. So, Let me know in the comments if any of this sounds familiar. One, no one talks about how hard it is to work within a system that wasn't designed with your abilities and limitations in mind, as a neurodivergent person trying to navigate a world that wasn't built to accommodate you. Two, you have the skills and abilities to do great work, but you're constantly struggling with social barriers, high masking, and burnout. In fact, you're probably perfectly capable of doing your job, but you aren't so good with the navigating of the unspoken rules of the workplace. Maybe you've been told to be more professional, or but have not been explicitly been told what that means or entails. Three, you jump between jobs frequently because you keep experiencing burnout, which leads to fallout with employers. And no matter how well you try to take care of yourself, you find yourself deteriorating at work, perhaps to the point where your body and mind gives out. And that ultimately impacts your employer-employee relationship. And finally, four, job hunting is exhausting. It's also triggering, especially if you're a people pleaser or you experience RSD. In fact, excessive time job hunting can be really bad for your mental health. And we've all been there through this string of endless rejections and ghosting. It is just not a neurodivergent friendly place to be. Considering the standard procedures that we have in place. Now, I see in the comments, there are some people saying, yes, all of the above. So many people experience this. And, I just want all of you to know out there, whether you're here live right now or you're watching this after the fact, that you're not alone in this. There's so many of us, and it is not a personal failing. It's not a moral failing. It is just the way it is. It is just what we're dealing with. It's what's been laid out in society for us to deal with. Now, what's at risk if you don't take action? What if you're like, okay, my work life is not amazing. It's not great. There are things I'm not happy about, but I can deal with it. I'll just tough it out. Everybody does. I might as well do it too. What happens? Well, one, to nobody's surprise, you'll continue your career in a state of painful burnout. You'll spend another 5 to 10 years working jobs that you hate. And, honestly, in my opinion, 5 to 10 years is generous, especially if you're just kind of going with the flow and not really having a goal in mind and just hoping that you fall into the right position for you. Three, you'll waste hours of precious time searching for a new job only to be let down again. And finally, you'll continue to feel invalidated and unsupported at work every day. Now, you're probably thinking more of the same, but think about how the that burden compounds year after year after year. And we spend the majority of our lives working. We spend the majority of our lives in this professional environment. So, if we don't take the time to invest in that part of our lives, it's going to start spreading and impacting other aspects of our lives if it hasn't already. Now, I know I introduced myself, but here's just a little reminder of who I am. I helped neurodivergent professionals go from burnout to balance because that's what I did. That's exactly my journey, and I want to help more people do that. Now, before I was a career coach, as I said, I worked in marketing. I was a generalist and did everything from social media to copywriting to content creation, and particularly, I focused on educational content and I worked within the HR and recruitment industry. So, a lot of best practices, career advice, articles, all that kind of stuff. And of course, I said that I worked with small businesses and startups, and I was considered a high performing worker. And several years ago, I launched my passion project, which was called Career Pros, which combined my passion for helping people find work and with my copywriting skills and my knowledge of branding and marketing techniques. So I kind of have a very unique approach to the way that we do things, as many neurodivergent people do. I help my clients better sell themselves on an application and get over that initial barrier of, being being weeded out of consideration just based off of a piece of paper. And finally, as I mentioned before, I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 30, and it absolutely was the final piece of the puzzle. Now, with all that said, I am very happy with where the last, decade has led me. It was, a lot of, tumultuous times. It was challenging, but it got me to where I am today. That being said, there was a dark side to it. I did have one shameful secret that I had to hide from each and every employer. And I'm not going to keep you waiting. I'm going to tell you what it is. It is my extensive history of burnout. Now, over the 10 years, I held 10 different job positions. 10 years would range from 8 months to 2 years if I was lucky. And what's more, I was put on doctor recommended leave at 7 of those positions due to burnout. Now, I hope that this is resonating with some people. I hope that you're thinking, "Oh my God, like that's me. That was me, job hopping from role to role, trying to find the right fit, trying to find something that would work for me." But without having that final puzzle piece of ADHD for me, I was unable to figure that out. And so I wasted a lot of time, chasing advice from people who didn't really get where I was coming from. All the career advice, all of the self-help work out there was through the lens of neurotypicals. And so what I realized is that what we really needed is more resources and more support for neurodivergent people so that they can succeed in their roles and create that sustainable work life. Now, I see, and I'm looking at the comments here too. I'm really liking what you guys are putting in there. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm gonna look a lot closer later on, but continue chiming in. I love the conversation that's going on right now. Now, as you can see, this is the neurodivergent employment burnout cycle. Through my research and experiences with working with neurodivergent professionals, many have shared with me that, yeah, that was me. And I know that some of you in the comments right now are saying, yeah, that's me. I'm seeing myself in that. And this concept is what I like to refer to as the neurodivergent employment burnout cycle. And I'll walk you through the steps. We start at the top, find a new job, and you're cautiously optimistic for this new opportunity. So you start the work and you excel in your work, and if you're anything like me, you're a hard worker. You want to prove yourself. You want to show them that, hey, you didn't make a mistake hiring me. And that may or may not be your case, but in any case, what happens is over time you begin to slow burnout at work. And what do I mean by this? I mean that you know, from every day spent masking, spent trying to put yourself in the shoes of other people, trying to anticipate what the meaning between the lines is. All of this compounds and adds up, and it's going to start taking an impact on your life. You're probably going to notice that you have less interest in the things that you love to do before because you have so much anxiety around work. Maybe you go home and even though you've logged out of work for the day, it's still on your mind. There's all this kind of stuff. So if you don't intervene at this point, well, that is, you're going to slip into complete burnout at work where, suddenly your mind and your body are no longer in a state to be able to do the things that you are required to do. And, with that, sometimes it involves being on a performance improvement plan. Sometimes it's, feedback from your boss or from your coworkers. Sometimes you need to take leave of absence. That's what I had to do. I got a note from my doctor and I had to take doctor recommended leave many, many times. And with this, unfortunately, as much as everybody probably has good intentions, it can lead to a fallout with your employer. And that fallout can be a lot of different things. It could be, somebody micromanaging you a lot more because of what happened. It could be you being let go for, suspicious reasons, which, I'm sure we've all kind of had those thoughts going through our minds when that happens. But whatever happens, whatever happens, whether or not you stay with the employer or you leave of whoever's accord, you will reach a point where you need to start looking for a new job, whether it is to try and escape your current situation, or it is to or because you left or you're no longer with them and you need to try and find income. Now, in the best case scenario, you would be able to recover from your burnout during this time, so that by the time you get to a new job, then you will be refreshed and ready to give it your best. Not the case, unfortunately, because as we said before, job hunting is extremely exhausting. It is taxing, it drains your energy, it triggers a lot of people with rejection sensitive dysphoria, all this kind of stuff. So really, the employment cycle, as much as it's a cycle, maybe it's best kind of illustrated as like a downward spiral, which is kind of depressing to think about. And so if you don't intervene, if you don't break this cycle, that's exactly what's going to happen. So what do we do about it? That was kind of depressing, Veronica. You might be thinking, what's next? What's next for me? What is there hope? Let's look at the next step. And this is exactly what my coaching program is designed to do. I've put together the 5 elements of what I believe are the areas you need to focus on in order to improve sustainability in your work life. And I call it the peace at work method. And because, happily, all of these elements spelled out the word peace. We're going to start with now. When we're exploring the areas of peace, we take 4 stages to that, and I'm going to take you quickly through what those are. First is evaluate where you are, because obviously you cannot plan a journey without knowing where you are right now. This involves evaluating your skills, evaluating what you enjoy at work, also your limitations, what your challenges are, all of this kind of stuff. So by understanding where you are, what your challenges are, what your road ahead looks like, then you'll be able to better position yourself for your next step. The next thing is exploring peace, which we're going to look through together in the next couple of slides. And these 5 elements will impact your ability to sustain your work life. Now, we also, next, after that, we set our direction. We look into our ideal future and we try and decide what our career goals are so that we can work towards that future. And finally, taking action. Taking action is, maybe the obvious step and what you kind of want to jump to from the beginning. But if you do the first 3 steps, then it will set you up for success, so that when you're taking action, you're not just doing it out of fear. You're not doing it to escape a situation. You are doing it because you are motivated and you know where you're going and you feel confident in where you're going. So, why don't we break down peace? The first one, P, position, finding the right job, identifying roles that will play to your strengths and motivations, identifying potential challenges in a job and coming up with ways to compensate for them, setting and maintaining boundaries at work, and asking questions that will yield valuable insights and information. These are all things that we dive into a lot more, and I will talk about this a little bit more later. But I do have a free webinar training that goes a little bit more into in depth to what this is and includes some activities that you might find useful. But with that, these are the essential things that you want to get from your position. These are the things that you should know in order to evaluate whether your current work is working for you, or whether you need to pivot, or if the goal you have in mind is going to be great for you. So that's position. Now, environment. As we know, finding the right employer makes all the difference. Like, you could have the perfect job and you could even have the perfect employer, but like a bad manager could ruin it, because the manager determines your environment, right? And I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are thinking about, the last bad manager that they had, and like, how that alone almost drove them to quit. So, it is absolutely relatable out there. Now, when it comes to environment, what we want to do is we want to evaluate job postings for alignment with your own work-life standards and values, etc. So, when you're looking for an employer, do they align with what you are looking for? And would you be happy working with people who share those values with you and share the same approach to work? Recognizing potential red flags for an employer and assessing risk. So, during the interview portion or during the hiring process, it's important to be able to evaluate your employer as well so that you don't end up stuck in the same situation as before. But how do you look for those red flags? Well, you need to know what you're looking for first and what are considered red flags to you. Finally, understanding the interviewer's expectations and intentions so that you can tailor your responses. Now, this is often one of the hardest things for neurodivergent folks to do because honestly, it's, reading between the lines, reading body language, mirroring, trying to figure out what people are really trying to hear from you, and those kinds of neurotypical expectations can be very difficult to navigate. That being said, there are things you can do to compensate that won't that and not all of it requires masking per se, but it will require you to have a very in-depth knowledge of yourself and what your expectations are and what you're looking for. Next up, we have accommodations. Get the right supports. Now, as we know, once you have the right position and the right workplace in place, and you have the job, hopefully at this point now you're going to want to start building more structures within your actual role to make sure that you have the best chance possible of, making it from day to day. With that, identifying workplace challenges and researching potential solutions is the first step. Making sure that you can identify yourself, what you need so that you can advocate for yourself to your employer. Communicating your proposal to management and HR in a collaborative and effective way. So, this kind of communication is also going to be very important over and over and over again because unfortunately, we don't live in a world where we can expect the employer to go to bat for us automatically. We need to be ready to take the first step. Finally, the ability to self-regulate through frustrating procedures, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that with the next coping skills section. But basically, getting accommodations is not always going to be straightforward. Hopefully, your employer is supportive enough that in that area that they will do that, but there's no guarantee, and there might be some, administrative things and people dragging their feet and stuff. And it's important to be able to regulate yourself so that you can continue to stay balanced and navigate those conversations and keep yourself in a positive light. Now, next up, we have coping skills. As I mentioned, you need to learn how to self-regulate because uh, when it comes to accommodations, sorry, was somebody trying to say something? I'll continue. So, with coping skills, accommodations are not going to cover absolutely everything. They're going to give you a structure to lean on when you're having a bad day, but they might not necessarily, suit every single situation. So it's important to learn coping skills in order to self-regulate and make sure that you can manage yourself, during those moments of stress and anxiety and everything like that. So identifying areas of your work life that need additional support and assuming accommodations are in place. So if there's any gaps within those accommodations that they were not able to support you with, you need to be able to identify what those are. Exploring different methods of regulating your nervous system as well. And I do have a resource if anybody is interested on this. It's like a couple page PDF document that's on my website, but it does take you through how the nervous system works and why we have those fight or flight modes. And it's really interesting to understand it from that point of view. Finally, practicing self-soothing techniques regularly, not just when you're having an emergency, but regularly to try and maintain, your balance and your regulation as well. Next up, and finally, we have E, empowerment, which is agency in your work life. Now, a lot of us probably feel like, our careers have been a lot of going with the flow. Whatever opportunities come, I'm going to evaluate them and then see if I take them and see how it works out. But with empowerment, once you have all the other elements of peace in place, you'll be much more in control of what's happening in your work life. You can't control everything because a lot of things are up to chance and opportunities and everything like that. But what you can do is you can improve your odds by having these skills. And um, if you are able to use those skills, no, you guys are seeing me in real time blank out, ADHD style. So I just lost my train of thought. Shout out in the comments if you can relate to me. Anyway, if the train of thought is important, it will come back. That being
Love
said, I'll
it.
go on. Yes. I will go on to the next bullet, which is recognizing when you are no longer benefiting from your current work life. So if you can see that, you're not getting the value that you need out of your work life, and you're seeing that the road is starting to come to an end, and you're starting to see more cons, staying where you are than pros, then it's important to be able to do that, to recognize that so that you can start making preparations early. And so you can have the best chance possible of making a smooth transition and finding another place that will be able to support your needs. Knowing how to plan a work life transition that will improve your work life. So, understanding how to do that, and understanding the pieces of knowledge that we've gathered throughout this process of going through peace is going to be so essential. And finally, being able to take calculated risks at work to improve your quality of life. So, once again, here's the slide again. This is the peace at work method. This is what I teach in my coaching programs, and it's also outlined in a little bit more detail in a webinar training seminar that I have that I have online. That if anybody's interested, I'm happy to pop it in the comments at the end. With that said, that is my presentation. I do want to, my next slide was actually to plug my webinars. So, showing how much I know this slide deck off by heart, I just wanted to mention that I do have a free online training video. It's basically the same thing that I cover here, except it has a lot more activities, and it goes through, reflection questions and things that you can actually do to try and position yourself better so that you can make a career transition towards something that's more sustainable for you. So I will pop the link in the comments a little bit later. But for now, if you want to find it, also look on atypicalcareers.com. That is my website. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys is my Facebook group. And so I know that most of you guys are on Facebook. You would have been on Sherry's group, which is amazing. Mine is specifically focused on careers and job hunting. And that actual member count is wrong because we actually had a huge explosion of members in the last month. And so we're actually up to 35.5 thousand members now, which is actually kind of bonkers. And it's exciting and scary at the same time. If you can imagine, I was feeling the classic overwhelm during that time, but I am so excited because there's so many great conversations taking place in that space right now. And if you have questions about this, I really encourage you to be part of that group and contribute. Just, stay silent and lurk, whatever. But I hope that you get value out of it because that is really something that I aim to do. I want to make sure that there are more career resources out there through a neurodivergent lens so that people like us who have, let's face it, infinite amounts of potential when supported correctly and when given the tools we need to succeed, we can change the world. We can get to those positions where we are making it, where we can make influence and where we can make the decisions and we can shape the world the way that we want to do. And that's really my grand goal here. I mean, I don't know if I'm ever going to be that big, but I have big dreams, and that's kind of what I'm really seeing neurodivergent people doing in the future. And what we need to do is lay down the foundation so that our successes now pave the road for the next generation as well. So, with that being said, Thank you for being here with me. We've reached the end. I do look forward to learning more about you guys, and we're going to have a little Q&A session right now, but I can't wait to help you guys apply everything you've learned about building a sustainable career. And let me know if you have any questions. These are my contact information right here.